Hi guys, Overarch here, and today I'm going to be talking about what mechs are the best in Battletech. So first of all, remember that this video is entirely my opinion, and this is a very subjective thing. You might totally disagree with me, and that's fine. I would love to hear why you do down in the comment section below. Next is that this video is geared towards multiplayer. So if you're not really so focused in multiplayer, I'm sure that these tips or these opinions will carry over to the campaign, but when I talk about things like cost, I'm specifically talking about their cost in multiplayer. So first of all, we have the light mechs. One of my favorite light mechs is the Jenner. Now, the Jenner is extremely costly, but it's also very durable with its high speed and relatively high armor. What really makes it shine, however, is its weapon options. It has an excellent balance of laser and missile slots along with ample tonnage, so it can mount a really hard punch, a punch that's probably equal to the less survivable Commando, and second only to the sluggish Urban Mech. Speaking of Urban Mechs, the Urban Mech is the other light mech that I really like, and it's great for totally different reasons. Urban Mechs mount sufficient armor and great weaponry for a light mech. They fill a totally different role from the other lights, in that they're kind of an off-brawler. They mount enough weapons that they shouldn't be ignored, but are tanky enough to absorb more fire than they're worth to kill. This of course comes at the loss of speed for a light, making it basically worthless as a scout, but instead serves as a cheap bullet sponge that can still shoot pretty decently. Now we're moving on to the mediums, and I actually have a tie for my favorite medium mech. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Centurion. I love the Centurion because it's an all-round mech with a good balance of armor, speed, and weaponry. This mech can do whatever you need it to do at any range and be good at whatever role you need it to fill. So on the whole, it is a great mech with a great balance of armor, speed, and weaponry. I often include these guys in my lances. Next up, and tied with it, is the Hunchback. So it competes with the Centurion for best medium mech in my opinion, but for a totally different reason. It lacks missile slots, which forces it more towards a brawler than the more versatile Centurion. However, it is significantly tougher, albeit slower, and is just really great at slugging it out and getting into the front line and fighting. One downside to the Hunchback is that it mounts a lot of its weaponry on one of its torso slots, which means that it is kind of vulnerable to having that section shot off and disabling the bulk of its weapons, whereas the Centurion can spread out its weapons a little bit more. But on the whole, if you see a Hunchback running towards you, that's a bad thing for the enemy. So it's a really powerful mech in my opinion. Now we're moving on to the Heavies, and there are two Heavies that I think shine above the rest. The first is the Catapult. The Catapult is amazing at fulfilling the fire support role that you want most of your Heavies to be fulfilling. It has great range, great firepower, great knockdown depending on how you build it. I almost always have a Catapult in my lance. The one time I will not take a Catapult is if I'm fielding a Stalker, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. The other heavy mech that I think is particularly good is the Thunderbolt, and that's just because it's a heavier Centurion. It fills the exact same role and has the exact same advantages. It's an all-round mech that can fight at any range and has a good mix of durability, speed, and weaponry. There's nothing not to like about the Thunderbolt. Lastly, we're on to the Assaults. So, like with the Heavies, I think two Assaults kind of outshine the others. And the first is the Atlas, which is a tank and super heavy brawler. Nothing more needs to be said about this thing. It's an absolute juggernaut. It has enough good hardpoints for missiles and ballistics for if you want to mount long-range options while you slowly close. And you probably will, because this thing is slow. However, once you actually get there, it has a huge punch, both figuratively and literally, as it also has one of the highest melee damages in the game. This mech is ridiculously expensive, but an absolute juggernaut. The second Assault that distinguishes itself, in my opinion, is the Stalker. And that is because it is an assault and missile juggernaut. It's one of only a handful of mechs that can mount 4 LRM-20s. And then it's the only one that can mount them in a non-retarded way that actually spreads them throughout the mech so they don't all get blasted off when one part is destroyed. One of these will cover you for all of your fire support needs, although I do think it tends to be a little bit of an overkill for a fire support mech. Lastly, I do have an honorable mention. I do have a little bit of a runner-up, and that's the King Crab. It has a decent mix of weaponry and can mount the hardest ballistic punch of any mech. With the AC-20 build, if this thing hits something, it's going to hurt like hell, and it's probably going to destroy whatever it just hit. So for that reason alone, I do have to give it an honorable mention, even if it is, kind of a little bit of different of a playstyle. Well, as always, guys, let me know if you disagree or agree with me down in the comment section below, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.